I'm privileged to be here in your presence with my friend and co-director Paul Krajewski, who has many years of experience not only in startups, but is an expert when it comes to product management, ensuring you understand your customers' needs so that you can design, create, and improve a product to meet those needs. At the Founder Institute, we are also proud to be supported by Addison's, who is a well-known Australian law firm, and they have a practice that specialises in corporate law for startups. And Rebecca Dooley, who's one of the partners at Addison's, has been a long-term mentor and advisor and confidant of many founders, not only at Founder Institute, but within the tech ecosystem. In our region, we are thrilled to also be supported by other mentors. These are mentors who have got dirt under their fingernails. They have run global operations. They have started businesses not only in this part of the world, but have taken them overseas. They invest in companies. Now, some of you have asked, what is the Founder Institute? Well, we're the world's largest global network of startup accelerators, investors, and advisors. You can see there's a stack load of portfolio companies, even more money raised from investors, with a large amount of value being created. Now, where do we sit within the ecosystem? Well, you might have been familiar with programs such as Startup School or Lean Startup Machine, and you might have heard of venture capital firms on the right-hand side, as well as seed, accelerator or angel programs. Well, we are a pre-seed accelerator. We help founders who might have a full-time job to go through the process of using their part-time hours to get initial traction and to prepare for seed funding. Around the world, there are many FI portfolio companies. In fact, no accelerator has launched more startups across the world than Founder Institute. And what are some of the portfolio companies that are close to home? Well, you might recognise a couple of them, some of which have been acquired, as well as others in different parts of the world. Now, Founder Institute starts with what we call FI, Founder Institute Core. These are for founders who are at the pre-seed stage where they're looking to improve their ideation, their validation, to improve their product, and to get to revenue. Within this FI Core program, which is a part-time program that runs over about 14 weeks, there are 3 different tracks. There's the validate track, there's the launch track, and the traction track. And as you can see here, during FI Core, we are interested in having you go through these growth sprints with this rule of 1. It's a methodology to activate entrepreneurial potential by focusing your efforts intensely. Are you solving one problem for one customer with one product that has one killer feature and one revenue stream? Let's talk about accelerators, incubators, and co-working. This is a recent report from Startup Muster, which is a survey of many startups and folks within the startup community in the region. And what you'll see here is, of course, networking and connections are really important when it comes to accelerators and incubators. But look at this thing which has gone up a lot, peer support is really important. And you can also see a great deal of startups have benefited from being in an accelerator. At the Founder Institute, you get constant feedback. Lots of feedback sessions. You get one-on-one office hours with the co-directors like Paul and I, as well as mentors. And then there's also peer-to-peer feedback from your working groups, because other people who are taking part in the program may have a deep expertise in a field that you may not have. Now, what happens after the program? Well, there is a lifetime of support. There's access and support from the Founder Institute team in Silicon Valley. There's a whole range of resources, and there are what are called advanced accelerators to help you get a lead investor, to help you build your leadership skills. And here's what happens as you go through the process of the funding lab. In 10 steps, you go through this process of building momentum and closing a lead investor. I'll show you some of the alumni benefits, and you can check it out at fi.co. You get access to private events, a private email list, and over 3 million Australian dollars in partner discounts. You also get access to all of the Founder Institute sessions. So the global ecosystem at Founder Institute is about building communities, building startups, and also helping to build funds which can, in turn, invest. We're here to help, but Founder Institute is hard. It's no walk in the park because building a fundable startup is harder. We're not like the encouragement awards in primary school. We are the most raw street program out there for startups, says Jason Calacanis, who's the host of This Week in Startups, very well-known angel investor. We empower. We push for honest feedback. Now, one of the things that I would ask you to do, if you haven't already, is take advantage of our Founder DNA program. You can do this online. It takes about half an hour. Paul and I have done it a few times. And this will give you a report, a free report on what is your personality type and how you might be thinking about co-founders or other team members so you can form a team that is primed for success. We're going to be running more Founder Institute events.
Well, first of all, thank you so much to both Benjamin and Paul for having me. For everybody who doesn't know or who isn't part of Founder Institute already, I highly suggest that you join or get involved as much as you can. I'm not getting paid to say this, but being a founder myself, I know how lonely the journey is and how helpful it can be to have people around you who are going for the same journey, who can help you along the way. So if you haven't done so already, please reach out to them. Such a worthwhile thing to do. What I'm going to be sharing with you is how to grow your sales and your business faster and easier with AI. So hopefully this is the right session. Hopefully you're not coming along to a HR session or operations session. That's not me. This session is around growth. And more specifically for me, when I talk about growth, I focus on kind of top line revenue. So I look at things like leads, sales, customers, profit, marketing. That's kind of my area of specialization. So, I know there's a lot of great AI people who can do the operational side, automation side. This isn't quite about that. This is more about how to use AI and leverage AI to go out to market and get more customers back and get more sales and get more revenues. Again, I'm going to be very honest here. I am not the guy who's going to come in and say, here's how you build a 50 agent bot, with Make and automate the entire back. I'm going to show you some very simple things that you can do with AI that all business owners can do, especially if you're a startup founder, to accelerate the sales. And I'll explain more of that as we go. But really, it's about the strategic side tonight, but leveraging AI to get the strategy happening a lot faster. A little bit about who I am. So I am what I would consider an accidental entrepreneur. So I started a marketing agency about 9 years ago now, just to try and escape this corporate job, which I absolutely hated. So as you can see, I've got an image of myself in a suit. I used to wear a suit and tie and absolutely hated going through on Monday mornings on the bus into the city to look at spreadsheets all day, right? I was a corporate IT guy. So essentially a spreadsheet jockey. All I wanted to do when I started my business was to make $10,000 or $12,000 a month, and I would have been over the moon. Like if I replaced my corporate salary, I would have been so happy. And I stumbled along and struggled for the longest time, but somehow accidentally managed to build my marketing company to multiple seven figures across the course of 8 years, serving over 380 clients directly in that time and generating over $50 million in sales for those clients. During that time, I had the pleasure and the luck and just the honor of serving some amazing companies both here in Australia and also overseas. So companies like Air Wallets was a great client of ours, helped them very early on to the point where they had 85 salespeople in their team. At that point, it was like, probably should handle that internally rather than helping, having us take care of so much of the outreach and the sales. We worked with some of the biggest companies in Australia. Hampers Galore is an example. We work with international companies who are funded by Y Combinator. A real wide range of experiences, and hopefully I'm going to bring a lot of that to you tonight and show you how to model these fast-growing companies, model these amazing founders and organizations to drive and increase your own sales and growth in your business. August of last year, so roughly about a year ago, I actually sold my agency. These days, generally what I do do is I hang out with my wife, my kids, my dog. I teach a bunch of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, I surf, and I consult to brands who are going from 6 figures to 7 figures and 8 and beyond. And also done a little bit of angel investing here and there, including some through net people that I've met and founders I've met through Founders Institute. So an amazing organization again. And if you're not involved already, please get into it. With all that being said, let's get into the content piece, right? So what I'm going to be sharing with you tonight is essentially how I look at business growth and sales growth and how I use AI to really accelerate all of that. So again, I'm not going to be showing you, how to build 52 agent bots that all talk to each other and automate everything under the sun and go make you and buy you coffee. That's not what this is about. It's about taking the basics and doing it really, really well and really using the basic AI things to accelerate your growth and your sales. So what I'm going to show you is can all be done with ChatGPT 4.1. The paid version is great. That's all you need, like $20 a month US, and you can get everything that I'm going to show you here. And so really what the focus is, it's on strategy and not so much tools, right? Tools are an accelerant. I'm going to show the strategies and then how to use the tools to execute a lot faster and get more sales coming through. Imagine that you ran this amazing bakery in Queenstown, New Zealand. If you haven't been, probably my favorite bakery on the face of the planet. It's called Ferg Baker. It's next to the famous Ferg Burger. But imagine you ran Ferg Baker and I'm a competing pie startup coming into your market and trying to take your market share and trying to take your customers. My question to you is, if we were competing, right, if we were going head to head in pie sales, what would you want or what would you need to beat me at the market, right? There is only one thing that I really, really need to win this competition and beat everybody else. The one thing is a hungry crowd, or better yet, a hungry and drunk crowd. Even if you have mediocre pies, if you think about a crowd outside of a football game or a rugby game, the person selling pies would sell out, right? It doesn't matter about the marketing or like if you have a hungry crowd, they will come and they will find you and they'll buy every pie that you've got and you'll make a lot of money. Essentially, what I'm going to show you today is kind of like a 3-step method to essentially find a hungry crowd, right? Because I'm going to say something really controversial, especially for a marketing guy, but marketing is overrated and I'll explain why. So in case you heard that and say like, this guy, marketing guy saying marketing is overrated, I'll explain why, but everything I'm going to show you tonight is condensed into 3 steps. And I'm a big fan of simplicity, right? Simple scales, complex fails. So what my philosophy is, let's find the hungry crowd. Let's make them an offer or find them a painkiller solution to their problems, and then let's serve more people. And I'm going to show you how to use AI to accelerate all of this and get things done a lot faster. How to use AI to find a hungry crowd. The other way to look at what a hungry crowd is, right, is the term product market fit. So hopefully you've heard of that. Product market fit, or you can also say it's having an amazing, irresistible offer. The philosophy behind it, right, the way I like to enter markets and to grow businesses is not to try and create demand, because it's really, really difficult, really hard to actually go and create demand. And in fact, I'll say it's almost impossible unless you have a stack of funding. Right? Unless you've got millions and millions in the war chest, it's really, really hard to go and create something out of nothing and get people to want that something. When I work with clients, or when I worked with clients in the past with my agency, when I consult to clients now, generally I like to find products or services that meet a demand that's already there. And then the question is, how do we get you in front of that demand and position it in a way where people actually want what you have to sell? So that's what I mean. Marketing is overrated. And I'm going to show you an actual example from one of the consulting clients I'm working with now, where, and I'll take for the numbers and show you what they're doing to prove this point, right? Product market fit is everything. So 80% of what we do, or 80% of what I do with AI is using it to accelerate us getting to product market fit. This is how I look at growing a business. So there's 4 categories that I look at. And these 4 are, businesses, for example, on the top left here, where they have really great product market fit, but they've got mediocre marketing. Right? If you have that, if you have mediocre marketing, but you've got amazing product market fit, you will still grow your business really strongly. The flip side of that, the opposite, is if you have really bad product market fit and mediocre marketing, your business will essentially flatline. Your sales will flatline, right? That's not a good position to be in. You can have amazing world-class marketing, but not the right offer, not the right fit, and it's still going to be very, very slow to growth. So I will stick my hand up and, admit that when I worked in my agency, we had clients like this who had super complicated products, who had, they just timed the market really wrong. They were either too early or too late. And even with all the marketing we had, even with all the experience, it was really slow to get them traction and to get them growth. So one of the key things I look at is, if that's where you are or potentially where you're going, pivot as soon as you can to a place where you've got better product market fit and better marketing, because that's when the real growth happens. I'm going to take you through this example, and this is the company I was talking about, and it's really funny. And I'll give you a story about this company. So it's a company that's selling Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu courses and teaching Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu online. So I've been doing it for a long, long while, and my business coach actually said to me one time, "Why don't you go into business and do some kind of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu business, sell some courses?" And I always said, "No, there's no money in it. There is no way I'm going to do it because people aren't going to buy the product." Until just a few weeks ago, I ran into this business that's doing 6 figures a month in sales, right? 6 figures a month, completely bootstrapped with massive, massive profit margins. And this business, every dollar they're spending on advertising and ads brings back $12 into the bank account. All right, so every dollar that they put out, $12 comes back. Amazing business. And when I spoke to them, and when I first came in contact with them, they said themselves, "Hey, we've got really, really average marketing," and they always downplay, "Hey, our marketing is really bad. It's super basic. Look at everything we've got. It's not great." And in a way, they are kind of right, but in another way, I think they're also geniuses, because they've proven that, for them, they've just nailed the product marketing fit. So even though the marketing is kind of average, like there's nothing spectacular about it, they are growing, like they're doubling. Some months they'll double inside of a month, right? They're just growing so quickly, and they've just nailed the product marketing fit side of things. What they've done, and I want to use them as a real example because it can kind of show you, where we're going with all of this. But what they've done is they've figured out, in terms of product marketing fit, they're not going after 90% of the market in terms of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. They're not going after the young athletic competitors coming up, the people who are either at uni or they've dedicated their life to Jiu-Jitsu. They're young, so their joints don't ache. They can spend all their time on the mats training. That's not the crowd, because they have no money. What they figured out is that there's a subset of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu crowd that are a little bit older. They're professionals. They've got jobs, families, life outside of Jiu-Jitsu. Because they're professionals, chances are they've got a bit of an ego because they've been successful in other areas of life. But then they get onto the mats, and these young kids just beat them up, right? They get steamrolled, they get strangled, they get their limbs put into different directions, and they just do not like that. But the problem is they can't go as hard as they want to, because they've got a meeting at 9 a.m. So they can't turn up to a 9 a.m. meeting with a black eye or with like marks all over their face because they've just gone completely crazy. So this business has figured out the product market fit for their products is going after this older demographic who actually have money. And because of that, they are doing multiple 6 figures in profit every single month. And they've only been in business for about a year and a bit, and they're doing multiple 6 figures per month. That's the power of having great product market fit. What does that mean? Well, it means that if we can use AI to find our product market fit, everything else becomes much, much easier. The marketing becomes so much more easier. With this example, I'm going to go through and give you an example of a business now. And I'm going to show you with this business, which is a sleep consultancy for new parents. I'm going to use AI prompts and show you the prompts that I use and show you how I use AI to figure all of this stuff out, to get them in front of a new audience, and to get sales coming through. Taking this example of a sleep consultancy for new parents, in the past, as a marketer, as a business owner, what we would have had to do is spend a bunch of time on research. So, every single client that came in when I used to run my agency, I used to read blogs about the market, right? So, for example, in this example, you'd have to read new parenting blogs. You'd have to join parenting forums to see what the other parents are saying. I used to go for hours and hours of Reddit just doing research and just following threads through Reddit. I used to look at Amazon book reviews and read every single review to say what's missing, what are people asking, what are people saying in the market. I had to do this kind of pesky thing, because talking to actual people, right, interviewing actual people to figure out, hey, what does the market actually want? What is the market saying? And I'd buy every newsletter or magazine in the space. Now, here's where the AI comes in, because nowadays, rather than doing that, you can very, very easily get AI to shortcut weeks and weeks of learning and give you the right information. So, for example, in this sleep consultancy business, I would go to ChatGPT, and using ChatGPT 4.1 or 4.5, which is at the current stage, the research module, which is amazing. I would say things like put yourself into the shoes of a new parent, and your child isn't sleeping well, and walk me through a day in your life. What does it look like? And give me the emotions and feelings you're experiencing in as much detail as possible. And I'm impressed with how much AI can read or can try and interpret human emotion from their side. But it goes through, and you probably can't see these because it gave me this massively big response, but it gave me point by point, time by time, exactly what happens in the life of this busy parent. So it goes from waking up at 3 a.m. because the baby's woken up again, and just tells this amazing, amazing story, which is deep research on what it's like to be a parent with a child who's just not sleeping. Now, I picked this example because my kids are a little bit older, 13 and 10. So it was a little bit a while ago, but even then, it kind of brings back memories of, hey, when they were growing up, here's what happened when they weren't sleeping, right? So I can kind of look at it and go, is this correct or not? But it gives me this emotional thing where it looks at all these different things that your market's probably thinking that your market might not even know themselves. And it's done this by collecting all these resources and scraping the internet and all the forums and Reddit and pulling it into its data that is presenting back to you. When it's doing that, it's saving you hours, days, if not weeks of research and presenting it back to you in a very, very digestible format. Off the back of this, right, what we then generally do is I like to go deep, and I'll get it to go, okay, now I know what a day in the life looks like. Give me your ideas of what the top 5 bleeding neck problems are for this market. So I'm going to talk a lot about the bleeding neck problems, and go deep into that. But essentially what I'm trying to do is find the thing find the 5 things that are the most frustrating or painful for our market. Because as we talked about previously with a product market fit, what we're trying to do is we're trying to build products or services that solve a particular problem and gives a lot of value relative to the price. Value to price meaning if we're charging $1, can we give $10 of value? And it's sometimes really hard to quantify, but that's how I think about problems, and that's how I think about sales and going through things like that. Essentially, what I'm using AI for at this point is I want to know our target market's pains, frustrations, and struggles better than they can know it themselves. If they're going for the pain, they're very focused on the trees. I want to see both the trees and the forest. So this is essentially how I'm using AI at this very important step to figure out and to do deep research. Essentially, what I'm looking for is what are the emotional triggers, or what are they saying to themselves in their minds, right? So as a parent whose kid isn't sleeping, what doubts or frustrations am I coming across, right? How am I feeling, right? How do I feel when I wake up at 3 a.m.? What about when I'm going about my day? Like, what are the biggest things? In marketing, the term is enter the conversation going on in their minds. Because if you can do that, it's literally like a Jedi mind trick. You can get on their side and get so much empathy and understanding from them by presenting their problems back to them. So that's essentially what I'm trying to get through. I'm trying to get through deep, deep research. You should still do deep research. You should still interview, but this gets you a lot further of the way to doing that. So you don't have to spend weeks and weeks just getting a surface level understanding of the market. You can really go deep into market psychology. So if you don't know your ICP, if you don't know their pains, if you don't know the frustrations, you shouldn't be doing anything else. You should be getting such a deep understanding of what your customers or your clients are thinking, feeling, doing, because that's going to inform everything else that you do, whether it's marketing or sales. That is the first starting point. So if you don't have that done already, I really suggest you go through and do that. And when for example, I've got a few products or businesses I've had a hand in acquiring, or I've got an equity in. When I bought the businesses, or when I partner with those businesses, I actually go through deep research and I print them out and stick them up on the wall so that when I'm working on those businesses, I see the pains and frustrations and I always refer back to it, because that's what's going to drive the business forward, right? We're solving problems. This part is really about, we've got some understanding of the pains that are going on in people's lives, right? In the lives of our customers, in the lives of our clients. This is the part where we're trying to merge what we do in terms of our product or service to become a painkiller. So the analogy is, there are 2 ways to look at the problem. One is, first of all, we need to make sure we're tackling bleeding neck problems. So these are problems that, if we don't solve it, bad things are really going to happen, right? So bleeding neck problems are very painful problems, they're very urgent problems, problems that our market really, really need to solve. And the way that we want to solve this problem for them is looking at it from a perspective of a painkiller versus a vitamin. So if you're in pain, you are looking for a painkiller, right? You generally do not care what the cost is for the painkiller. You're in pain, you need to move out of pain. You will pay more, or a lot more for the painkiller than you will versus a vitamin, which is nice, but you don't really know the effects. It's long term. It's nice to have. It might make you feel a little bit better, but you're not in pain. It's not urgent, and you're not compelled to buy the product or service right here, right now. In general, at this point in time, we have an idea of what the bleeding neck problems of our market are. This is where we use AI to come up with a hypothesis of how our product or service can actually solve the problem for them and become a painkiller. Going back to the last example here, where we're a sleep consultant for new parents, the first thing I do is, after we've done a deep research, I would use a prompt like, given everything that we know, given all the stories you told me and the emotional pain and frustrations and struggles of a parent whose child isn't sleeping, give me a summary of my bleeding neck problems, or the top 5 bleeding neck problems for me. As you can see, ChatGPT will go through and go, hey, well, first of all, you've got physical and mental burnout from no sleep. Pretty accurate. There's constant fear of failing or getting it wrong, which I think is, this is, for me, as I look through this, it's a magical point, because it's like a quiet pain that a lot of parents won't even talk about. But when you put that in front of a new parent, it's very real, right? Emotionally, it's very real. The third is, the isolation and sense of losing my own life. Again, one of those things that parents don't even dare to speak about. If you put it in front of them, they're like, oh man, this person gets me. It can also be creating relationship friction and guilt, and also never truly switching off or feeling safe. So ChatGPT does a really good job taking everything that it's given us and summarizing it into bleeding neck problems that we can tackle with our product or service. Here's where I'm going to differentiate and give you two paths. One is, if you're at the point where you don't quite have a set offer yet, or you're open to changing your offers, this is a prompt that I like to use to create, that solution or that offer, right? So I'll say something like, help me brainstorm my offer, go back to the pain points and think about what would be the ultimate offer I can run, just to make an absolute no-brainer that would get the market breaking or knocking down my doors to buy from us. So that is a prompt that I would actually use at this point to go and get a summary of what an offer or solution could look like. This is the kind of prompt that I'll send back, because now we're at the step of figuring out, what do we do to solve the pain, right? What would people actually pay for? And so ChatGPT goes in, and it takes a history, right? It understands the context of the conversation we've had so far, understands the historical, hey, I found the pain points, I know what the struggles are, here's what you can do to put together an offer that a parent would absolutely love to buy. So it will go through and go, hey, my hypothesis is, if you package this if you package this module or this product to this problem, this to this, and match it up, you'll make it an irresistible offer that that will have complete product market fit that people will love to buy, and it will make it easy for you to sell. If you already have a set product or service, right? So in this example here, where we're a sleep consultant, it's not like we can come up with a different way of working, because essentially what we do is set. We're a consultant. We help parents either through education or through just helping them with the sleep side. There's not a lot of fancy things that we can do outside of just giving them information and support. In that case, if you have a very set product or a service, and this is very particular for B2B as well, right? Sometimes in B2B, it's impossible to create this amazing offer, because it's just not scalable, or just not possible to deliver. This is a great way of reframing what you do to be their painkiller. What I'll say to the prompt is, I want to match what we do as a service or a product to their bleeding neck problem. Now, I want you to go through and give me a step-by-step for each of the top 5 pain points, and show me how what we do actually matches or can help our audience, right? And then I'll give it a bit more context. So I'll say, in this example, we're a sleep consultancy for new parents with kids who struggle with sleep. And what we do and what makes us different is that we use a mix of cutting edge research and science with ancient or traditional strategies or methods that mothers have been using for generations. So that's all made up, by the way. This I don't have a sleep consulting business. This is just a hypothetical. But this is how I think about the solution, and how I use AI to go and get me that solution. Then get it to go through bit by bit and give me links directly back to the top 5 pain points. I've now got my pain points. I've got the top 5 and the emotional side of it as well. And what I've done this step is, I've now matched the solution or the offer or the product or the service to each of the different pain points. So I've addressed how our services or our products can solve the biggest pains or frustrations in our customers' lives. AI generated value proposition mapping pretty much sums up what we do. As you can see here, right, you get really, really detailed walkthroughs from ChatGPT as it goes through. So it will give you number one problem is chronic exhaustion that doesn't go away. Here's how our product or service solves that for you. Number two is feeling like you're doing everything wrong. Here's how our product or service does that for you. And so what this does is it just builds your marketing and sales arsenal so that when you hear a particular pain or a particular frustration, you know exactly, you've got the ammo in, or if you've got the tools in tool belt to say, hey, if this is you or if this is the thing that you're struggling with, here's what we do and here's how we do it and here's the end result. It makes marketing and sales so simple because you're just talking to the benefit or the end result rather than the features, right? And that's what we want to be doing as business owners and marketers and as salespeople. I'll then go through and prompt it and go, okay, great. You've given me the detailed step-by-step of what we do and how we act as a painkiller. Give me a summary that I can use across our websites, our emails, any asset that we have. Give me a summary that I can easily take and use to do our selling with. So then ChatGPT will come through and go, okay, well, here's your summary, right? We help exhausted, frustrated new parents finally get the sleep and peace that they desperately need by transforming chaotic nights into calm, predictable routines. So see how already it's using the right language, is using the pains and turning it into benefit, right? It's future pacing what we want to do. So it then goes and talks about the features. So using a powerful blend of cutting edge sleep science and wisdom of centuries of parenting traditions, yada yada. Like it just gives you the solution and how you talk about it, so that when you're in front of the market, you've got this in front of you. That's the second part, right? Where we look at what we're going to be doing with this and how we're going to be matching that to the pains that we talk about. I really like that ChatGPT can actually go to external sources and look at the internet and look at web pages. So that's generally the one I use. There's so many other good platforms, and they're always changing. So generally, I find it's much of a muchness. I'm really only using it for deep research. So for me, ChatGPT and the newer models especially are pretty amazing. So far, what we've got is we know exactly what our market's biggest pains, frustrations, and struggles are, and we know this better than they know it themselves. We also know exactly how our products or services solve those bleeding neck problems, right? So the first two modules were all about this. So next, we've got a theory that, or a hypothesis, let's say, that ChatGPT has given us, right? It's given us a hypothesis on what the biggest problems are. It's given us a hypothesis on, hey, here's how your product or your service solves these biggest problems. And so next is, well, let's try and get this in front of more and more people. Traditionally, right, this is where AI really comes into its own, because traditionally, even on top of the research piece, even on top of the solutions piece, traditionally what we would have had to do is things like hire an expensive agency. We would have had to done things like build a big team. We needed designers, copywriters, ad people. We would have spent months trying to get these things done out to market, and all the while, anytime we needed to change, we needed to go back to our team and to do this. So not only is the research piece sped up a lot by AI can now speed up the execution piece as well. So what I tend to do with AI these days is, if I'm building marketing, if I'm building copy, it's got so much good knowledge already stored within it. I'll get it to turn it into copy that I can then edit. One thing, I am an absolute copywriting geek. It is the thing that I absolutely geek out about. Copywriting as in not like the TM kind of stuff, but copywriting as in creating words on a page for marketing and sales that gets people to take action. And so for me, I am, it's probably the topic that I geek out about the most. But for me, it's a really great way of using AI to improve the process. I've been doing this for 10 years of just writing, and it's second nature to me. But even when I was working with clients as part of my agency, my clients would always used to say to me, I feel like I know everything, but then I look at a screen, I just blank, my mind blanked. Does that sound familiar? Has that happened to anyone here? Let me know, right? You feel like I know my business, I know my customers. The second it comes to writing emails, the second it comes to creating, putting stuff on a web page, you just stare at a Google Doc and the thing flashes at you and just like, what do I write here? And this is, might be a little bit funny, but when I had clients coming through as part of my agency, my clients would say to me, oh, I just don't know how to write copy. But the second I gave them copy that I wrote, they just turn into like the best editors in the world. They're like, this is wrong, change that, do this, do that. because it's so much easier for them to go and edit things than it is to go and create from scratch. And so that's the other side of AI, right? It just makes it easier for you to edit rather than having to go and create. What I'll then do is, given this example that we've seen, going from figuring out the problem, going from figuring out the solution, and then going through finally, to looking at serving more people. What we then wanted to do here is go and say, hey, with everything above, help me map out a plan or a sales funnel, and what would it look like to get leads coming into our business. So we've got the pain hypothesis, we've got the solution hypothesis. Now let's go and create an actual plan from all of this. So ChatGPT will go and say, yep, we've got a sales funnel plan. Here's what it does. Here's the stages, and it'll actually give us an entire plan to execute for our marketing and also for our sales. Now, as we were, and it will also give you angles that you can use, hooks you can use. It will even go through and create sales scripts that you can use to do all of this. So I find it absolutely amazing to get the assets you need to go to market. Word of warning, AI can be known as the great bullshitter. Right. So you really absolutely have to check everything that you're pushing through it to make sure you're getting the right information, right? To make sure you're getting the right outputs. So just to give an example, a business I was consulting with just a few weeks ago, they had a ChatGPT created sales plan, sales and marketing plan. What it was a B2B business that did enterprise or corporate level customer experience. ChatGPT actually spat out a business plan where their focus would have been on Instagram. And so if you know of the marketing side, Instagram is very B2C, it's very direct to consumer, and companies or corporations generally don't go and buy enterprise agreements through something like Instagram. But based on everything ChatGPT had, that was the plan that it actually gave. So be very, very careful when and validate everything that you're pushing through AI. It's going to cut down your research time, it's going to give you so much great information, but essentially, garbage in, garbage out. Anything that you're doing with marketing, give it some context, right? With all the GPTs I use, for example, if I'm writing emails, I'll feed it email sequences that I know work really well in the past and use that to seed the next email sequence that I'm writing. So really, you've got to give it the context, give it some data, give it some examples to get the good output. One, find your hungry crowd, right? Get in front of a hypothesis as quickly as possible. Find the hungry crowd, find the people. Two is use AI to generate a hypothesis on how you can help them, right? How can you be a painkiller solution for them? And three, use it to create a plan to get in front of more people and to serve more people. And just on that as well, you can also feed sales calls, sales email, sales data through to AI to analyze this information and feed it back. So it's like a continuous loop. AI helps you find the problem, helps lay out the solution, it helps you to solve more people. And as you get in front of more people, you feed that back to the loop again and start all from scratch again. And you iterate really, really quickly, get better really quickly, and improve by 1% every single day. In terms of all of that, there is a plan and strategy that I will leave you with. And this is something that I absolutely swear by, and this is something that AI can help you to get done so much faster. And it's my formula of 100, 100, 100. So what it is if you want to really accelerate the growth of your business, all you have to do is 100 outbound emails per day, especially in B2B. This will be transform a business. And for a company, for example, like Airwallex, who I consulted to and worked with back in the day, this was like a formula, right? Each rep sent 100 outbound emails per day, and that filled their pipeline. Now, you can also spend $100 on ads. And if you do that consistently for 100 days, it'll massively have an impact on your business. You can take AI, you can accelerate, but honestly, what AI is really, really great at and how I use it to drive sales and drive growth is just enable you to take massive imperfect action. That's the theory component of it. Here's how you can contact me. LinkedIn's probably the best way to go about it. I've dropped my email on here through my Scale Tribe email address. I do have an AI cheat sheet and a few resources I'm always creating. So if you want those resources, let me know. And as I create them, I'm happy to share them with you as well. Let's jump into questions. AI is changing so quickly. So when I had my agency at our peak, we had about 20 team members. Most of them were based in the Philippines, but we had a massive team of 20. In the past 2-3 months, there's been changes in AI that's come out that pretty much, if I still had my team of 20, could have reduced them to 2. I honestly believe that in the next few years, we will see the first billion-dollar business run by a single founder or 2 founders with a bunch of AI. I think AI is, especially for lower level work and tasks, it's really going to automate and just smash at everything. So my personal advice is, even if you've got funding, keep it as lean as possible. Keep yourself as hungry as possible, because resourcefulness is one competitive advantage you can have in your business. Until you get to the point where you're working, all founders work 80 hours a week, but until you're really consistently doing it and you just can't push the boundaries, I would stick with AI. The only time I would hire is to bring external knowledge or experience that you don't have, right? If you can do a task, find a way to either to automate it, or if it's not that important, maybe even eliminate it or delegate it. But delegation only, I generally like to hire only for experience and expertise that I don't have myself. That's when I start looking outside. The 100 rule, can I get info once again previously? Okay, so the 100, it's a rough guideline and formula I've got in terms of rapidly accelerating company growth. It's 100 cold emails, $100 in ads done for 100 days. What that does, it's a rapid iteration of pretty much just a quarter, right? Like, it's 3 months, 90 days, 100 days, it's 3 months. But in 3 months' time, you can have a theory about the market in terms of the pain and frustrations, have a theory about how your service tackles, service or your product tackles that, and go to market and rapidly test that. So if you can do 100 cold emails per day, $100 in ads per day for 100 days, you are going to get so much market validation and feedback. It's going to just help your business to grow, because essentially all you're trying to do in business is you're doing little small pivots and tests until you find the perfect product market fit. When you get the perfect product market fit, your business takes off like that. Like with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys that I showed, they just nailed product market fit and they just took off, like they're taking off. So that's essentially what we're trying to do with the 100. Seems like it would only work once you have product market. No, so the 100 is to get you to product market fit. When you get product market fit, it's 1,000. It's when you find product market fit, you've tested the way and things are working well. That's when you pour gasoline on it. So 100 with this AI process, which I've shown, allows you to rapidly test the market until you find product market fit. Dave, you've got to quit. So do you mean stick to email and paid ads for the first 100 days without website and social media? Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, Dave. So there are businesses out there, Dave, who are doing multiple 7, 8 figures that don't even have a website. My father-in-law's business, he's a stonemason, right? So he creates amazing kitchen bench tops, multiple 8 figures, doesn't have a website. Haven't had one for 10 years. More work than he can handle, makes a bucket load of money, no website. So he's just found his own product market fit in that he works with bigger building companies. They give him a bunch of work and he's never had to do marketing, essentially, except for talking to more builders. So yes, you absolutely do not need a website or social media to do 100. You will need social media, I should say, as a very basic profile to run advertising, but you can absolutely do cold emails without. AO asked, is the 100 with or without product? I think you need some hypothesis of what your product is before you do the 100. Otherwise, you're just learning about the pains of the market, which is okay, which is fine. But I always like having a hypothesis of how you're going to solve that pain for them as well. When we need to raise funds, if we have so much reliance on AI for operations rather than humans, how would that be taken as by investors, as in seed rounds? I am an angel investor. I love companies with AI because that means you're not wasting my investor money on bloated structures and things that don't work. You're putting it all towards growth and using AI to grow faster, grow leaner, and actually using the money in a good way. I've got ChatGPT up in front of me, so let's use that to start play around with it. So first of all, tell me, what was your target market? Who are you trying to speak to?
Executive Director of the government agency across Australia.
What government agency specifically?
Transport. Start from transport.
And this is the magic hack that I want to share with everybody. So I'm just going to speak it out. Put yourself in the shoes of a director or executive director of a government-based transportation agency. Give me what a day in your life looks like, including the pains, frustrations, and struggles and challenges that you're facing. Also, walk me through your biggest targets or KPIs and what you're trying to do on a day-to-day basis. What are the pressures coming to you from? What are the things that annoy you, and what are the biggest bleeding neck problems that you're dealing with, both on a day-to-day perspective and on a general, bigger, wider perspective. So as you can see, this is the very minor hack that's helping to triple or even more my output. I don't actually type anymore. So I've got a program called Willow AI or Willow Voice, and it dictates everything. So including going to ChatGPT, including like Google Docs, emails, everything, it literally just takes my voice and just transforms it. So sometimes when I type things out, it doesn't look quite right, but that's probably why, because I'm talking it out. And I find that it just helps it's more natural of an interface, and it really helps my output just, by going through and doing this. If I talk to AI and just give it that, here's what it gives back to me. Here's a deep dive of what it's like to be an executive director of a government-based transportation agency, e.g. public transit. So it just gives me this pain. So you wake up, coffee in hand, major incident on a key highway, has media calls, right? So it starts telling you the story of what they're actually going through. People are complaining about their departments, so they're probably getting pressure. You're mentally prepping for questions from elected officials. So this is how I'm starting to get into it, right? This is how I'm starting to do deep research about who they are, what they're actually doing. So it even tells you, hey, here's some of the meetings that they're taking, meetings with stakeholders. Here we go, and just gives you the story, right? That's kind of step number one. But hopefully this bit is correct as well. So on-time performance, customer satisfaction, safety incidents. So these are things that they're aware of, right?
Agree. Yep.
Yep. And then, so what is your product or service?
Providing assurance against the contract and ensuring that how the contract get delivered.
Okay, so as a service, we use AI and automation to provide assurance against the contracts and make sure that the contracts get delivered correctly, at the targets are met, and that it gets delivered in the right way, in the right fashion, and that everything is above board with contracts. Given all of that, match what we do in terms of our offer and our services and our products against the biggest pains or frustrations in the life of our customers. Tell me, from your perspective, how what we do matches exactly and solves their biggest bleeding neck problems. Also, tackle their 5 biggest bleeding neck problems and give me a rundown of how our service solves all of this. All right, so as you can see, I've just talked all of that out, and it's going through and it'll give me a mapping, hopefully, of how it does all of that. Right, so pain points being budget blowouts, cost overruns, how we solve it. So automated contract monitoring, smart alerts, dashboards, right? So this is kind of the process, right? So then we work through it and go, okay, perfect. So now we know the pain, we know the potential solution. Now the next thing that we can say is, now I imagine with your audience, they're not the easiest people to get in front of. Very busy, not looking at Facebook advertising every single day, not exactly the best play to get in front of with something like that, right? So the next thing I'll look at is I'll go through to AI and go, given the profile that we're trying to target, giving our customers, and given the pain and the solution that you've proposed so far, how would you go about getting in front of these people? Give me some strategies I can use that can very effectively get us in front of our target market, get their attention, and land us a conversation. I would ask it that, and it's now got a lot more context because it's done a lot more research, started to think through all of this, and now this is when it starts going through, hey, here's strategically what you can actually do. So, right, you can go to industry associations, that sounds correct. You can go to events, you can go to conferences, roundtables, you can go to forums that the government runs, you can strategic partnerships, that's a great idea. When we were doing a lot of B2B things, with my previous agency, a lot of the work we did was B2B outreach or cold email outreach. So we outreach for partnerships, we'd outreach for, for direct opportunities. Well, here we go, insight-led direct outreach. Here you go. So personalized cold emails, that's definitely a good part of it. And it starts to even write some of the emails for you. Now, obviously, some of the emails are not going to look right. We want to be very personal, but at least it starts getting you in the frame of, okay, here's a few things we can do. Here's how I can edit this. And account-based marketing, this is all fairly correct, just from my personal experience. That's how I'd shortcut the process. So you've gone from having to do weeks and weeks of research, you've gone from having to do interviews to at least having something to say, hey, I've now got an idea. Can we run 100 based on the ideas that I've got from here?
Fantastic.
That's kind of the process, right? That's in a nutshell. The 3 things that we do, and again, keep it simple, keep it limited to 3 different areas, right? We're figuring out the problem, we're figuring out the solution, and then we're going to go through and figure out how we can deliver on what we do. Paul and Benjamin, thank you for running these amazing events for startup founders. Definitely is something, if you're in startup or starting your business, you absolutely should check it out. Thank you everybody on this call. It's been, thank you for making it so interactive. I really like and thrive off the energy, so really appreciate the feedback as we go along. And yeah, hope to connect you with you all and see you around the startup scene.